Ashley D. Lauder. Now, Ashley played hard to get, but she is really wanting to have the privilege of throwing a craving on some old boy. But Ashley was some ugly. Ooh, Ashley had to slip up on the dipper to get a drink of water. If Moses had seen Ashley, there'd have been another commandment. So, Clovis is walking to the county fair and got this pig under one arm and chicken under the other arm and this basket on top of his head. And he walks up to Ashley and says, "Where is the fairgrounds?" Ashley said, "You go straight ahead a quarter of a mile and turn right at the sign and walk a quarter of a mile, and you'll come out at the fairgrounds." And Clovis said, "Well, it's down there and to the right. Seems to me you could just cut across these woods right here. Be a shortcut and save a lot of time." Ashley said, "That's right. It is a shortcut. But I'm taking the shortcut, and I don't want you walking with me because you may try to hug me." That's what you'll do, is try to hug me. Clovis said, "You crazy? So how in the world can I hug you if I wanted to? But I got a pig under one arm and a chicken under the other, and I got a basket on top of my head." Ashley said, "You could put that chicken under that basket and I could hold that little old pig."
That's the end of it there. Can you hear me okay, Dave? Dave.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you pretty good.
Okay, anyhow.
It's a little low. It's a little low, but I can hear you.
Okay, I was just going to say, as we heard, that Ashley's desire was to get the privilege of throwing a craving on some old boy. And the whole thing, as you know, that she gave the solution was to get that opportunity. And one morning before we had that meeting at which I played that tape, I woke up and the Lord brought that back to me, because that's what the devil wants: the privilege and the opportunity to throw a craving on us. And notice, Clovis had no craving to kiss her or hug her, but she figured she could work out a way to create a craving. And that's what happens in situations where, as David pointed out, if we're not watchful, the enemy can set up a situation to catch our attention first. And then from there, if we're not watchful, as he sets up things and talks and so forth, the desire to do what he wants us to do will get created. That's the whole purpose behind athletes that excel, that have been paid millions of dollars to wear certain sneakers. And they say right today, if I'm not mistaken, Michael Jordan is still, I'm thinking, making more money than anybody on his sneakers. As a matter of fact, I think they say, as well as LeBron, maybe some others too, that they make more money on the advertising that they do than for playing the game of basketball. Because the powers that be that are trying to sell the sneakers know that if we reverence Michael or LeBron or Kobe or whomever, that if they push that sneaker out of reverence, even though I don't want that sneaker, because I reverence that person and see them wearing that, that'll influence me to go buy them. And it works. Been working for 11 years. Michael has made untold millions of dollars just because of the fact that he has a great game. And I heard the story about how the people at Nike first approached him. He didn't want to do it at first, but eventually, as they reasoned together and they showed him the money he could make, and he was pleased with the way they were going to do it, he signed the line, and the rest is history. But it's a it's a true fact that the human mind, if it's not equipped as it ought to be, a desire to do something or buy something can be created where there is no desire, and actually control that person or influence them, maybe a better word, to do what they want them to do in buying this product. And they make big bucks on it. So it works. It works. It's just that it doesn't work on everybody as well as it should, because as they like, I'll say, because certain people fight those desires and not let their mind get controlled that way, influenced that way, and it doesn't work. But that's why that came to mind, because that's what the devil wants: the opportunity or the privilege of throwing a craving on us, and that's exactly what he did to Eve. You got it, Dave.
All right. Well, with that being said, anybody else got anything while we go back to Genesis 3 to look at how he threw that craving on Eve? No? All right. Let's go to Genesis 3. We'll look at him throw this craving on her. All right. Now, Genesis 3, verse 1, the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said unto the woman, Yea, hath God said, Ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden. And the woman said unto the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God hath said, Ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die, for God doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and you shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. And he let that sit for a minute, I'm sure. You know, you can see little wheels going in her head after he spoke that.
Oh yeah, gotta let it soak in.
So, and then when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof, and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. And the eyes of them both were opened, and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons. All right, I think we can comfortably stop there. We see how he threw the craving on her. But the important thing to see is there are a lot of people who are subtle. The word subtle deals with crafty, shrewd, sly. You see those characteristics come out in a lot of people when you're dealing with people out in the workforce and in the world, and often sometimes even unfortunately make it into the church house. You start seeing characteristics. One big thing that I've really been looking at and focusing on myself in my own private study time deals a lot with that same concept. When you see the manifestation of characteristics that go with a certain definition. Okay. I might not want to throw an ugly title on what I did, But if the characteristics go with the definition of pride, I have to throw that ugly definition, that ugly term on it and say what I did was in pride. No, I might not want to throw that ugly term and say I lied. But if the characteristics go with the definition, deceptive, other, I guess, less harsh definitions that go with the term, the definition of lying, at the end of the day, I have to throw that title on there. I lied. Okay. And so that's something I've been spending some time on. If what I'm doing is deceitful, then that's lying. If what I'm doing is self-centered and not or presumptuous, which gets into some of the definition of pride, then it's pride. And I looked at several scriptures over in Proverbs dealing with pride. And so I've really been focusing on guilt by definition. Okay, you go through these definitions and you see yourself in those definitions, then as opposed to shrugging it off, I have to, if I'm going to be honest with God, and if God's going to get what He wants accomplished in me, then I'm going to be honest. I have to have that good and honest heart of the good ground, that honest and sincere heart that falls into the category of good ground if I'm going to produce. And all of us wants to produce what God wants us to do. I don't think anybody would dare say that they don't want to please God and produce all the fruit that they want to in their lives. Well, it starts with, first off, being honest. I honestly want to be right with God. And if I'm not right, I honestly want to see it and not do, as I've said sometimes in the past, have my, and I guess it's a defense mechanism, not have my first response always be, who, not me? No, that's not me. Or you must be preaching at somebody else. My first impromptu response needs to be, now, is that talking to me? Do I fit that category? You know? And so with that, I'll open back up and see. I think someone might be trying to jump in on that.
I'm not playing with the phone over here. I'll say this though, as the others think about it. And when we first talked about this, after listening to that tape, the last study we had, the idea, as David pointed out, and as the tape pointed out, Clovis had no desire for Ashley. She's a woman, so thereby being a woman, she can be attractive depending upon how she approaches a man. And then from there, depending on the man, he either is going to yield or not, or resist her advances. But the stage is set as being this: Eve and Adam and Eve were innocent. They only knew good. They only knew what God had made them aware of in response to good, even though she knew there was a danger, and Adam definitely knew there was a danger in not obeying God. But the idea is that he had no desire to do wrong or eat of that tree. That's the idea. Eat of that tree. They had no desire. But this serpent was more subtle than any of the beasts of the field. So Satan chose the right animal to use in order to approach her. And so he chose the serpent. And then the conversation starts out with, yes, hath God said? And that's how you open the conversation. Every good salesman wants to have a way of getting the conversation started. And oftentimes, if it's cold canvassing, as you know, they'll knock and then they'll introduce themselves. And once when I was in sales, once I made a presentation at the first house, we were taught to say, I was just next door talking to so-and-so, and I believe this will interest you also, quote unquote. That's how the sales presentation went. And from there, I would begin to talk about the product, and depending on where I was, what I meant to do it though. So I may say something about the house, just idle chit chat, but not too much of that, because when you talk about door-to-door canvassing, time is money. even more so than in some areas. And so you want to get into the sales talk and start flowing. And that's what he did. Yea, have God said, ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden. And the woman answers him. Now, when I said that, what did I teach you that I learned about questions? Anybody remember? Other than Dave, I know he does. Little Dave probably does too. He probably give you a chance to for somebody else to answer. But who remembers what I shared in that regard? Anybody? Lynn?
Somebody jump in. What happens when you ask somebody a question?
So what do you think happens when you ask somebody a question? Will you ask that question?
They put pressure on them to answer. It's in their ballpark, so they have to talk now.
It's pressure on them to answer. We barely heard you. You were kind of breaking up there.
Exactly. Yeah, she's sitting away from the computer for some reason.
I said you put pressure on them, on the person you're talking to.
Now we're hearing you loud and clear.
Think. They have to think now and answer the question that's asked them.
Yeah, for the most part, that's right. And she remembers that because I've used it with her a few times. So good thing she did remember that. But this was somebody else going to say something? I saw someone else's pictures come up as well.
I think I heard Mr. Mender say, and this is what I was thinking, is that this is Gerald, it puts pressure on that person to answer the question. And I think she also said that it's in their ballpark, or the ball is in their court.
Exactly. Now, when Gerald, since I got you talking, when they are pressured to answer that question, what's going on? What do you think is going on for as the conversation is concerned?
Well, I was thinking they stopped thinking about what.
Say again?
I was thinking that they stopped thinking about what they were going to necessarily say, to try to focus their mind on responding to you versus.
Well, you're doing good. You're doing great.
I forgot what I was going to say. That was basically what I was trying to say.
Yeah. Okay. Does that get anybody else seeing what she's saying as well as Gerald to see what's going on? Any more comments about that?
I see what she's saying.
Yeah. The thing is that the person, and I like the part where she says about they've got to stop thinking about what they were thinking about and get back to the question. Is that Amy? Can say something?
That was Amy. She wrote a comment.
Yeah. Amy, can you hear us? I guess you can hear us.
Yes, I can hear. I just look crazy, so I didn't cut on my camera. So.
But go on and talk. We hear you loud and clear.
No, I was just saying that when you question people, they don't have time to really try to be defensive, like come up with how they would want to be able to respond at that moment, because you're questioning right there. So they don't have time to really put up the defense and say like things that they know that they want to say and get out, because they have to answer the question. So,
right.
Okay, I see it.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. That's good. And see, what's happening is that the point I'm getting to as we proceed on is that the person asking the question is controlling the conversation. Notice that. He started it, then controlled it. Because when he said, yea, has God said, there was pressure to answer his question. And so he had her in his control then, conversation-wise, and she proceeded to answer their question to the best of her knowledge, which wasn't very good, as we know, which he took advantage of. But we were taught, there again, as I remind you, if you go to a person's house like I was, where time is money, and they want to talk about the grandson, the son, or anything, I find something in the house or something I can ask them a question about, because I got to get them back on topic of studying this policy. And so I'll ask this question, by the way, so-and-so, so-and-so. And I'll get an inquisitive look on my face because I got to act this thing out. And then when they have moved and answer that question, I go right back to my sales presentation. Because now I've got their mind off what they were talking about on the question I ask, all will go to get them back to my topic. And I've done that time and time, and it works. It works. Now, once I finish my conversation and I've got to move to the next house, maybe I sold a policy and they want to chit chat and shoot the breeze and rejoice. That's good, but I got the money. I got to go to another person. So we would talk, especially with older folk. The best thing to do is, because some of them, want to talk. And so what we would do was, you get up talking, you make your way toward the front door talking, you move out the front door talking, and move to the car talking. And when you get to the car, you wave, bye, see you next time, and get in the car and go on. But it works. And the mama can tell you, I've done it a time or two with her where she wanted to talk about something, but we got business done, but I had to go. I can't just leave mama. So I just did that. And when I got outside, I waved, bye mama, we'll see you. And I got in the car and went on. But that was back in 75, and I still use that because time is money. Or if you don't have the time to shoot the breeze or talk, then you got to do that. But when I got time, we'll stay there and we'll talk and chit chat about whatever you see. But this is what the enemy did. He initiated the conversation, controlled the conversation, and in doing that, he was controlling her mind. Not, well, in this case, for bad. When we do it, when we're witnessing to somebody, and William and I would do this, when we knock doors, William Mitchell and I, we would do this when we knock doors. And but the idea is, like, we went to this one house where this guy wanted to talk about his wife. We want to talk about him. He's the husband. We want to deal with him first. He's talking about the wife. So we ask a question, get it back to the husband, and then deal with him. And really, as that Amy was saying, as well was Alicia, I believe, for sure Amy, he got defensive and wanted to change the conversation to her. Well, we knew what he was trying to do. And so we just used this tactic, asked the question, got it back to him, and then went on and gave him what God gave us to help him look at some stuff, like Dave pointed out. Sometimes when people are being witnessed to, especially if they're in the wrong, their conscience is dealing with them as God uses us in this squirming. And so we make it as easy as possible. And at the same time, in doing that, if we can find something humorous to talk about or look at, we do that for what purpose? That's the question. So why am I inclined at certain times, if I'm talking to somebody and witnessing to them, to inject some humor at a certain point? What does that do?
Say the last part of that again. Why are you doing what?
Why am I injecting humor while I'm talking? Why am I injecting humor at certain times?
It makes it easier.
Okay, how does it make it easier?
Puts them at ease.
Say again?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. When you put humor into it, it relaxes the person and it makes them put their guard down so that they can. I mean, it kind of opens it up more.
Yeah, it relaxes them because humor does that. That's why when we start our sales talk, once we got into it, as a reminder, we tell them, we're going to pay if you get hurt. We're going to pay if you get your feelings hurt. And then we laugh on purpose every time through the idea of seeing somebody else laugh, they're going to be prompted to laugh. Of course, it is fun the first time you hear it, but we told the same joke over and over and over. But we were taught to do that every time without fail because, as Erica pointed out, we're trying to relax them where they can listen to us and hear the benefits of the policy, the accident and health policy we're trying to sell. But if a person not relaxed, they can't really hear you as they should, and humor does that. It relaxes people. As a matter of fact, as we know, a merry heart does good like medicine. And so once they relax, if the guard is up, they let the guard down a bit and start listening more so. As a matter of fact, some people for wrong would do that to get you to relax so they can ease up on you, you see. But I was raised in the hood, so I know don't let nobody walk up too close to me. I got to maintain the distance where they can't get to me.
Stay socially distanced.
Yeah, exactly.
I think Gerald is trying to jump in and say something. Gerald, is that you?
Yeah, it's Sherelle. Here she is.
Okay.
Can y'all hear me okay?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
you all were saying something that kind of made me think about, I guess, a testimony. So one day me and Drill were having a conversation, and he was telling me that it was something I had did wrong. And in my mind, I had what I thought to be true at the time, like well, I did this. And when I thought that, I didn't know then that Satan was attacking me. But later, Drill asked a question. And when he asked the question, I stopped thinking about whatever I thought to be true prior to him saying anything. I was thinking about answering his question. And so when I answered the question, my response was different from what I thought. And he said, babe, do you know that what you said before was different from what you're saying now? Mm-hmm. And when he said that, I was like, huh? And then he said it again. And when he said it the second time, I thought about both responses, like what I had in my mind that I said to him, and then what I answered him saying. And it surprised me even. I did not realize that there were two different things going on. And then it made me think, well, which one is true? So I realized that what I answered him saying was the actual truth. But what I thought in my mind was a thought accepted from Satan to get me to continue in pride and for me to not receive the correction that he was giving me at that time. And I was like, okay, that, you know, because it was as though it was somebody else. And I was like a third person or something, but that was just the influence of Satan that I was able to see at that time. And I was thankful that he guided me and he was, you know, calm. And that's one thing I love about when he corrects me is that he knows what Satan is doing in me. And so he'll say something, like you said, funny, or just will have this tenderness, but truth, you know, but still firm with it so that I can really see what's going on. And that does help relax me, because when Satan is using you, there's so many emotions, you know, just going on, and you just ready, like I always think about David, that clap back, you know, it's just like a guard, you know, you just ready to, Satan had you ready to respond a certain way. And so that just blew my mind. You know, I was talking to him about that the rest of that evening, because I just had never seen it raw like that, you know. And so that I just wanted to share that because it sounded like that was kind of everybody's responses about what you were saying.
That's very good. And it really makes us see, as David started out saying, how we should examine ourselves. But if a person like Gerald, that God can reveal certain things to and to ask certain questions to help guide the mind. See, we want to guide the person's mind too through questions and so forth, and especially God's word, but we're doing it for their good. Whereas the enemy and those that he uses is doing it to influence or control us for bad. And as you talked, I know some others probably noticed it too. She started out when she said Satan attacked. And then as she kept talking, she said Satan influenced. Did y'all hear that? Hello? Well, you're muted, so you can't respond. But and then she said used. And so I listened as your words changed, Sherelle, as you were explaining what happened, and as God was giving you the words to make plain what you were talking about, what you were looking at. But he's helping us see just how the enemy comes against our mind, because that's what the battle is. We can't bring every thought into captivity and obedience to Christ except we understand how he works, to my Satan, and how God works, and how that every thought has got to be examined, as you pointed out. And so when we know one another, as you and Gerald are knowing each other, and we'll know our wives and know each other as brothers and sisters in Christ, worshiping at the same place of worship, then we know if somebody is talking, we know they have our good at heart. And so we can fight off the enemy in the influence and the subtleties he brings in order to try to get us to not receive correction, when actually we know that person loves us. And that's why they're obeying God to say what has to be said, even when it comes to asking questions. That's what Jesus worked. Ask questions, make comments, ask questions. But it's all a part of helping people and becoming a skillful worker with God to help people.
All right. Anybody else jumping in with anything?
Also, Dave, you and I talked about a little bit earlier today, but in this regard, you look at the motive that Satan had. I was looking at this word agenda today, and the first definition I got had to do with just a plan or either a series of things that's in the fire we got to get out or whatever. But then I came across this phrase called a hidden agenda. That's the phrase, hidden agenda or ulterior motive. And then it got interesting. It had to deal with, if I got that, if I can turn to it pretty quick. But it had to do with something not seen that was the actual motive. And it mentioned someone helping somebody, but they didn't do it because they're trying to help them. They did it with an ulterior motive that was designed to do them probably malice later on. But the idea is that everybody does something for a reason. The question is, what's the reason for it? And once we start understanding how the mind works and how some people, even babies, will do things to control the parents. Ain't that right, Sherelle? And all your other folk that had children. And so, but if we aren't good parents to know how to not let that baby control us, they will control us. And so here we see once again where he did it, and I say again, she had no desire, but the words he chose, and he caused her to see what really was not there, but he caused her mind to see as he wanted it to see, which means we go back to the scriptures once again. Let's see. He says, Genesis 3 once again. All right, and verse 6. And when the woman saw, because he caused her to see what she saw. She didn't see it at first. So he through the use of words, he controlled her mind and called her to see what he wanted her to see. That first off, the tree was good for food. Secondly, the thing got pleasant to the eyes, which is why David used that phrase a while ago about something being bad to me, looking bad. So I want to avoid that. I don't want to call it a lie because that's kind of bad to call it that, and accept the fact that's what I did. But if I'm honest with myself, then like James said, don't lie against the truth. If this is in my heart, then this is what's going on. You see. But so she saw the tree was now pleasant to the eyes, but he only got pleasant because of his words that he used to paint a picture that he wanted her to see, and it was desired to make one wise. Now, in this I won't call it an attack per se, but in this effort, and we'll go back to that phrase that we were using in regard to Terrell's dream about getting his claws into her. Usually, when you talk about that phrase, as we know, the phrase that we hear in the world most of the time is "Don't let her get her claws into you." In other words, she's trying to get latched on for a particular reason. And in this case, he wanted to get latched on for a particular reason. And as we said in regard to the little skit that Jerry Clower did, he actually threw a craving on her she didn't have. And that craving got latched on to her, and she didn't even know she should get away, because as Dave said when we first started this lesson tonight, she wasn't aware of the fact that there was danger. She wasn't aware of the fact she's being tricked. She thought this was good wisdom to know good and evil. And so, and it was desire to make one wise. She wanted to be wise. That's a good desire. Only problem is that The animal and the spirit behind the animal pushing this nonsense is not God's wisdom. It's wisdom, but not his wisdom. And so he tricked her. But in this move the devil made, and I'm trying to paint a picture here. In the move he made, you don't see any red flags in regard to a legitimate attack upon her and upon Adam. You don't see an attack per se. You see seduction taking place. It's pleasant. The word, I'm pretty sure he was talking smoothly to her. Might even have a baritone voice. I don't know. But it was pleasing to her ears, as she listened. And some folk can say stuff so smooth and eloquent. It's such a joy to listen to them. And I'm pretty sure this serpent, I had never thought about this before, Dave, but it's coming up, so I'm putting it out. Is that he was pleasing to listen to. As he laid out these words before her that she didn't examine, as he controlled her mind and influenced her mind.
So he was talking like Barry White, huh?
Some people, especially like Little Dave and Alicia and all them other young folk, they don't know nothing about no Barry White. Do y'all?
Yeah, they do.
Now Barry was smooth, I gotta admit, because when he came out with his stuff, back when I listened to that kind of music, I had him, Dave. I had all this stuff, because the boy was smooth. But exactly like that. And see, but the thing is that there wasn't no signs of danger. It wasn't like coming like Goliath did, nothing like that. And really the point is that this is when the devil is most dangerous, because you don't see any signs of danger. Karen, you about to say something, you just getting over there close to Dave. Okay, I'm gonna stop. Ken Wayne has something to say? No, Ken Wayne just tried to laugh out loud. Okay, I see that now. But anyhow, but this is the battle in which we find ourselves, And so when Satan unleashed his plan, I say that, when he unleashed his plan to get sin in the earth and thereby get death here, this is how he did it. This is how he did it. And so when we look at the fact that countless numbers of people today, if they don't receive Jesus, we know what's going on with them, that this plan, as subtle as it was, is simplistic, but it worked. It worked on her. And I'm pretty sure when she talked to Adam, she pressured him. See, I didn't die, but he knew the consequences, and he ate anyhow, and he died, and then she died. She didn't die. Well, why didn't she die, matter of fact, when she ate? Somebody help a brother out. Why didn't she die? Somebody jump in there.
Yeah. I didn't eat that.
I can't hear nobody. Can't see nobody.
This was
Who's that? Amy?
Sherelle.
Sherelle, yes, ma'am.
You said Eve. Why didn't she die?
Yeah, when she ate that fruit, and we know it wasn't an apple, we don't know what it was. When she ate the fruit that she ate, and then went to her husband with that same fruit, why didn't she die when she ate it?
I was thinking, she did eventually have a punishment, but I was thinking that the responsibility was on the husband. Because God told him.
The responsibility was on the husband. That Ken Wayne finna come in?
Yeah, that was what I was looking at, because God had commanded the man versus the woman, and the man's responsibility was for him to teach the wife.
Okay.
That's the same thing Karen's over here whispering too.
Karen, David.
But
as Ken said, he commanded the husband. But there's something else about that. Excuse me, I haven't heard anyone say just yet. Very true. He's exactly right. God commanded the husband before he formed the woman from a rib in Adam's side. But go further as to why she didn't die when she ate it.
Well, I was thinking because a covenant was made between God and Adam, and that the only way that she could die, or the only way death could enter the world, was for the covenant to be broken.
Oh, I tell you what, Dave, give her a kiss right there on the cheek. That's exactly right. And you put it even better than what I was going to say it. There was a covenant there because God said, the day you eat, Adam, as Ken said, he commanded the husband, but in the covenant, nobody died unless the husband ate it. And when he ate it, he died and then she died. But because she ate it, death didn't come. Because the covenant was between God and Adam in the fact that when he ate, he would die. You see. And so when he ate it, he died and then she died, and everybody born from their union as their offspring, we also are born dead. You see. And see, the enemy knew that, but he had to start with the weakest vessel or the weak link in the chain, if you will, please. And now I don't know whether Satan knew she was in the dark about what God exactly said or not, but he played his cards, and as it turns out, she did not know what God said. He took advantage of it, and he tricked her. But Adam wasn't tricked. So even though his wife pressured him and so forth, for whatever reasons he did, he ate that fruit and died, just like God said, because that was the covenant that they had, that when you eat this fruit, the day you eat, the day you die. And when he did that, she died. Now, some think that maybe he didn't want to lose her or thought that she would die. But if he remember what Elisa just said, God said the day you eat, Adam, not her. As a matter of fact, if he was as wise as he should have been, he should have asked God. Now, I know she ate, but is she going to die because she ate? As opposed to just, as they going back to their word, presumption, presumed, and then went on and ate anyhow. And for sure, she died and he died too. You know, but in their innocence, you got to ask questions. And he didn't ask God questions. He should have waited till God got to that afternoon when he came to walk with him in the cool of the evening, and then asked God. Now she ate, not squealing, not ratting out, you know, but just saying, because God already knew she ate anyhow. You know? He asked the question not because he didn't know, but he asked the question to get them to fist up, you know. But we gotta ask questions to God, like David did, time and time again. Should I do this? Should I go fight him? And God often said yes, and you'll be victorious. And so the thing is to ask God for wisdom. That's why James said, if any person lack wisdom, let him ask of God, who give it liberally and will not upbraid. He will not fuss at us for asking questions, as if it's a dumb question. No, if I don't know, ask. You know, then he'll give us an answer. But don't just do it because I assume or presume that this is going to be all right. I can mess up the whole ball of wax by not asking the questions. So anyhow, anybody else?
Yeah, well, when you were speaking, I was reminded of Romans 5 and how Paul put the situation. Very familiar set of scriptures, but the wording says, whereas verse 12, wherefore as by one man sin entered into the world, and death by sin, and so death passed upon all men, for that all have sinned.
Okay.
And then he goes on, for under the law, sin was in the world, yada yada. But the main point start back in verse 17. For if by one man's offense death reigned by one, much more they which receive abundance of grace and of the gift of righteousness shall reign in life by one, Christ Jesus. Therefore, as by the offense of one, judgment came upon all men to condemnation, even so by the righteousness of one, the free gift came upon all men unto justification of life. For as by one man's disobedience many were made sinners, so by the obedience of one shall many be made righteous.
Very good. Very good. All right. Any more comments? All right. So going back to the motive we had.
Real quickly, I was kind of slow in responding.
That's all right.
When we were talking a moment ago about Satan's subtlety and everything, I just really felt a weight kind of on me. spiritually. It's something God has shown me, kind of spoken in my heart some months back, and I hadn't had a chance to really kind of minister and deal with it. And it came back to me, and it's just basically around the fact that shaman still comes in a lot of different forms, people. Shaman comes in a lot of different forms. He might have looked one way for Amanda, and she shared so extensively about that, but he might look a totally different way for you.
That's right.
But he still has the same subtlety that got Eve, and he comes in a lot of different forms. And we have to realize that we have to take it seriously. That's why it was so critical, all the sharing that went forth, because I fear that someone might have looked at all that sharing and crying Amanda did about it and said, boy, she really had issues, as opposed to looking at it and saying, how can he slip up on me? How can he slick me? You know, with someone else, it might be a totally different thing, but it's still that same deceptive spirit trying to take somebody down through that. And that's really kind of a burden feeling like on me that needs to be paid attention to. He's got a lot of different forms, and a lot of people are kind of under his influence right now and don't realize it.
Right, that's right. It goes back to what Sherelle testified about how she felt when Gerald asked the question he did. To answer that question honestly, she was able to avoid the influence from the enemy that she didn't recognize until after she changed her answer, and then God quickened to her being a prophetess. Did you see the difference in what you first sensed and you were going to say as to what you did say, or what you did say then what you did say now? You see, and then I believe she said that Gerald even called attention to. But see, these are the little subtle ways the enemy will work against the mind of people, and especially if you're trying to mess up a marriage, where if the wife is not as honest as she should be, or let's put it this way, if she doesn't keep God's reverence before her eyes, that's what Psalm 36 lets us know. We say like the Bible says it. The transgression of the wicked says there is no fear of God before his eyes. So if the reverence of God before her eyes, like it always should be in our eyes as husbands, then that in and of itself will keep us answering the questions honestly, and thereby get the correction or the help or the encouragement that we need from whomever God's using. But we got to keep his reverence before our eyes, and because that's the one thing that protects us from the influence of Satan in the sense of getting the pride. If I keep God's reverence before my eyes, it's gonna make me be what? What's gonna be the product of that? That's another question.
If I keep God's reverence before my eyes.
Right. What's it gonna produce?
Obedience.
Well, it's something before obedience, though. That's the ultimate result. But what step takes place in a person's mind after they get right past? When you look at reverence, if it's there, what's the very next thing that affects the mind? What condition is the mind in? I put it that way.
Humility.
There you go. Exactly. So it's not a matter of me staying humble. It's a matter of me keeping reverence before my eyes. Because if I keep reverence before my eyes, I will be humble. And when I said that, Philippians 2 came back to mind. Eric, I'm going to get you to turn to Philippians 2 and get you to read. And then we're going to look at this next point about this situation with Eve. But go to Philippians 2 and, excuse me, we're going to read, let's see where we're going here now. Philippians 2. Let's start with verse 8 and then read down through. I'll let you know when to stop. But start with verse 8. Well, I'll tell you what, let's back up. Let's back up where he said, let this mind, verse 5. Let's start there.
Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus, who, being in the form of God, thought it not robbery to be equal with God, but made himself of no reputation, and took upon him the form of a servant, and was made in the likeness of men. And being found in fashion as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient unto death, even the death of the cross. Wherefore God also hath highly exalted him and given him a name which is above every name, that at the name of Jesus every knee shall bow, of things in heaven and things in earth and things under the earth, and that every tongue should confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. Wherefore, my beloved, as ye have always obeyed, not as in my presence only, but how much more in my absence, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling.
Excuse me, what version is that you're reading from?
You said Philippians 2:12?
Yeah, what version of the Bible is that though?
King James Version.
King James or New King James? King James or New King James?
It just say KJV.
Just King James.
Okay, all right, keep reading.
Okay. For it is God which worketh in you both to will and to do of his good pleasure.
Let's go back and read verse 12 for me one more time. Verse 12 and 13.
Okay. Wherefore, my beloved, as ye have always obeyed, not as in my presence only, but now much more in my absence, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling.
Okay. And then the 13th verse.
For it is God which worketh in you both to will and to do of his good pleasure.
All right. So notice that verse 12 says, work out your salvation with fear and trembling. And we know that word fear is really talking about reverence. For is the definition that we want it for. It talks about alarm or fright, be afraid, fear. But it's also talking about reverence, as we know, even though it's not actually placed there, because as we know, Proverbs 14 tells us, he that walketh in his uprightness feareth the Lord. And so we know there's a danger in not doing that. But the catch is, we'll obey because of that reverence and that danger of not obeying him. And then he lets us know that it's God who's in us, in our spirits, in our minds, working in us both to desire and to do of his good pleasure. And as Satan did with Eve from the outside, God does so more so from the inside, create a desire in our mind to do certain goods, do certain things that are good. And we didn't have the desire until he brought it. Now, some things we've been trained by him, and we have that frame of mind to love like we should. Then we see certain things, and with him and us together, we want to do certain things. But sometimes we didn't have the desire to do it, and on our own, I'll say. But God in us brought the desire to do it. And then as we saw the wisdom of it and yielded to it, we did his good pleasure. This gets into what I heard Dr. Hagen say many years ago about he was asking questions. I know we all went through this, and some may be going through this now. You know, is it God or is it me? Well, it's both of us. It's God and me. And so as we yield to his wisdom, as we check that desire coming, if it's of God, we run with it, you know. And God is getting his pleasure, his good pleasure done when we do so. Any more comments?
Yeah, this is Reagan.
Mm-hmm.
Chapter 3, it just popped out to me, Genesis chapter 3, that Satan or the serpent did not know where Eve was or where her understanding was, which is why he asked her. He just outright asked her, what did God say? And her response lets him know how he can exploit her. Her response of, I can't eat it or touch it, lets him know how he can exploit her or where her understanding was or her truly lack of understanding of what the commandment was. And I think for me personally, I know that he has been able to exploit what I don't know, will suggest the thought, and my response to that thought will reveal where I am or where I have understanding and where I don't have understanding, and will open up an avenue for him to further suggest or influence.
Yeah, that's one side of looking at this scenario as well. But another side of it is where I'm not going to say that he has a word of knowledge per se, because he doesn't have that per se, but he watches people. And if you watch a person enough, when you know the human mind and how it works, and you know body language, I'll use, for instance, just a quick example. I've learned that when a person stands or sits with their arms crossed, there's a reason for that. Anybody know why some people do that? Cross their arms when they're in a particular meeting or whatever the case may be?
It's a defensive posture.
And it's also designed to comfort me. I feel more comfortable that way. And so and there's some other phrases that goes along with that, but it's an effort to relax and be comfortable. And so people can do that. And sometimes, matter of fact, I just thought just then when I first, Ken Wayne, you remember when you first came to the church and I called you up? He gotta come in first. But when he came up, he had his arms crossed. And so I tapped his arms and said, relax. He dropped his arms, and then I reached forward to put my hand on his forehead, and then I began to talk to God on his behalf. And as I did that, he began to weep, and as the anointing came on. Ken Wayne, he hadn't come in yet. But
yeah, I remember it real well when you first started talking about it. That's the first thing that came to my mind. But for me, that was more so on the behalf of what Reagan was saying. It was more so a defense mechanism to me, is what I was feeling. And but that's the first thing I thought about when y'all first brought that up.
Exactly. So anyhow, but if a person knows body language, I dare say Satan knows body language. He can tell by the way I talk, by the way I walk, whether I really have God's wisdom or not. And if I don't, I'll give it away. It's like playing poker. A great poker player will watch the people that's in the game, and they'll learn how that person is, and they have what they call tails. By watching the hands going in, I watch them how they react, and then I can tell by their body language if they're not watching how they react. This is why some wear certain glasses and get a certain pose no matter what they do. They're trying to keep from giving a tale about what's going on in their minds. But a great poker player, if a person has a tale, they'll see it. You remember the movie with Mel Gibson called Maverick? And in that movie, he said, I'm going to lose for the first hour, But in that hour, he was watching everybody. And he checked his pocket watch. When the hour was up, then he changed up. He started wearing hands. And the guy said, you cheating. He said, what do you think I was doing that hour when I was losing? I was watching you guys to see what your tail is. And he told every one of them what their tail was. And they didn't know it. They didn't believe it, like they were saying. They didn't believe it, But some of the others that had been watching it, they confirmed, yeah, this is your tail. And they all kind of laughed, because he was telling the truth. So we got to watch each other to know tell. But back to Satan. He can tell by how I live what I know and don't know about God. My body language will give it away. The way I live will give it away. And I'm pretty sure he watched this woman. And so, but to Reagan's point, if he didn't know, then you start with the question. Even if he did know, you still start with a question. You got to get the conversation started. You don't just jump in there saying what he said. He's got to get her to respond and then come back with a lie to deceive her, because this is the whole idea, is to trick her. And I say this: if we go with he didn't know that she was that far in the dark, let's say she was not that far in the dark. But she wasn't as skillful with God's word. He still got her. Because if he couldn't get her this way and that way with reasoning, he'd have mixed up his fallacious reasoning, misleading reasoning to outskill her on defending what he's bringing to her to get this craving attached to her. You've seen people, you've seen it with your own children. Especially you parents that's got children not that old now. When we look back at Ken and Laurie and when Amy and Chris was coming up, especially the girls, Ken, you know how the girls are. See, them girls that mess with your heart, man. And Terrell, he can tell you that, and I can tell you that too. But if you don't stand firm on what you know is right, and see, this is what Ken Fay is with Big Daddy. See, and even now sometimes Ken Fay we get to look in the eyes and David be strong. See, ain't that right, Dave?
Yeah, she don't get away with too much.
Because she know how to get to the man. See, because that's the baby. That's what my younger sister would tell Mama. I'm the baby. When Mama grew to whip her, but I'm the baby. I don't know what Mama did back then, but I heard that anyhow. But my point is that the idea, God trying to make us skillful in the use of his word. That's the whole purpose for these interactions we're having now, so we can sharpen each other's minds to make us less likely to be tricked. So no matter how the enemy come against us with a particular reasoning, we can see him coming and defeat it. You see, because if he can't get us one way, he'll get us another way. Because he's gonna keep coming, and he'll leave for a while if we fight him off. But then he's gonna say, okay, let's see if he's gonna maintain, like Joe talked about the other night. See, if I don't maintain, he'll come back again. Especially if David has taught me some things and they're fresh, I run him off. But then, like now in this session we're having, David asked me a question, and I can't recall what he said because I didn't keep meditating that thing. So now I can't get the right answer. Which means in that area in which he's asking me, I am susceptible to be corrupted because I have let slip the answers that he gave me how long ago he gave me. So we have to constantly hone our skills and keep them honed. Hone our skills and keep them honed. Is Dump on? I think I saw his name. But in regard to basketball.
I see his phone listed.
Say again?
I see Dump's phone listed.
Okay. Well, as he knows and we all know, there are certain drills, dribbling drills you do. There's shooting drills you do. This is life. This is life. That way you stay honed on your handling skills. You stay honed on your shooting skills. You don't have, for the most part, off day, especially with dribbling. Now, my shot may get a little off, and I have to kind of concentrate a little bit to get back on. But dribbling, I never let that get slack because I'm dribbling all the time. But that thing has to be done every day, hours per day, in order to keep those skills honed and get better. And so it's the same thing with God's word. We stay in God's word for the most part daily for a little while, hour, 2 hours, whatever the case may be. And as we're meditating the word, the Holy Ghost is going to ask questions. The Holy Ghost is going to bring scriptures, all because he's trying to hone our skills in the use of his word so that when we get into a situation where it's pretty dangerous, that we can come through like we should because we got skill using God's word and he can't trick us. But if there's an area where I'm off, then he'll find it just by probing with questions, by probing, by watching me. And matter of fact, as you know, I know Dave does coach. I used to play basketball. Dave, y'all would leave class and go down to Henderson and shoot at night. When he got through working. But there are times where if you know I'm right-handed, you're gonna force me to my left. You're not gonna let me go to the right. You're gonna force me left. You're gonna take advantage of or make me use my weak hand if it's weak. Now, if I've been working on my left and it's strong too, then you still force me to my left. You're not gonna let me go right, but I can still score with my left as well if I've been working on my left. Otherwise, that means now I'm susceptible to be beat because I can't go left. I can only go right. You see. So when we look at how Satan watches us, like a dog watches a person, or more so, I say a dog. then that dog knows what he can get away with, what he can't get away with. And Satan, when he saw he couldn't defeat Jesus initially, the Bible says he left for a season, but he came back. Now, he never caught Jesus unprepared and unskilled, but it wasn't. But it was because Jesus continued to do what he's teaching us to do, and so whenever the devil came back, Jesus was ready for him. But how many of us can say that? That's the question.
Amen. Amen.
Anybody else?
That's in the promises. When you look over in the epistles, you see that things are set up to where we could never fail. If we do certain things, we will never fail, the same way Jesus never failed.
Exactly.
But like you're saying, Jesus was consistent in keeping that relationship strong, keeping that reverence before his eyes, keeping the commandments before his eyes, so where he never did slip up. And
studying God's word.
Yeah, that's the whole key.
Ken, you have something to say? Ken? All right. Oh, he is? Okay.
No, Laura keep having me muted. She's kind of slow on the trigger. No, I was just kind of looking back over some things back in chapter 2 of Genesis, when the Lord had commanded Adam of not to eat of the tree, but it just so amazed to me how it seems to me like I'm sure he had to teach her something about it, what God had said, because when Satan started talking to her, she communicated with him on about, like at verse 2, it said, and the woman said unto the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God had said, you shall not eat of it, neither shall you touch it, lest you die. So she had to learn that from somewhere. Obviously, she learned that from her husband, yet and still, even though she heard him, he talked, because God commanded the man, not her. So obviously, it wasn't that she didn't know, because she conversed back and forth with Satan about it. But the thing that baffled me the most part about it was where even though God commanded him, Satan come out to the wife and he attacked the weaker vessel. Then the man turned right around and followed her. That's mind-boggling,
Yeah, it is. It is.
See that, because I've known in a lot of instances, you're like, I remember one time you remember when Rainbow come out, these vacuum cleaners, when they were so popular, and
we still got one now.
Yeah, we had a Rainbow, and they had a over there off, I'm thinking Canis, they had a store over there where they fixed them and you can buy them and so on. And I remember we took our vacuum in one time, and this dude was all up on Laura. He's gonna just ignore her, or gonna talk to her. Because I'm the type of person, Laura tell you, I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do. You can't influence. If I don't want to do it, I ain't gonna do it. That's just what it is.
There you go.
Car salesman out, where the average people run from them, I run to them. Because I ain't gonna buy it. I ain't gonna buy it. I don't care what you say. And if you push too hard, I'm gonna push back. So, and he was studied whispering in Laura's ear, and it kind of, I almost said a word like "piss me off," Like,
look at you.
I said, let me tell you something. I said, Laura gonna buy what I said she gonna buy. If you want to sell something, you come over here and talk to me. Don't talk to my wife. Get away from her.
Thank you.
And so, but a lot of men, they will play those games like that because they know that they're trying to influence the woman, and a lot of men will gravitate to that.
True.
But boy, you talking about got my jaws hot. I can't stand stuff like that.
We're supposed to. Dave, you got something to say?
I saw somebody say either Gerald or Sherelle, I think.
Mr. Freeman has said exactly what I was sitting here thinking about. I was thinking about That's me. It has an echo for some reason.
Oh, just turn it down. Sorry.
Okay. Drill's turning me down so it won't echo. I was thinking about that although they didn't have the Bible to read in the garden, that the word had still came. God was the word for them at that time. If he was directly communicating with them and telling them what they needed to know to live. And I was thinking, even then, there was an excuse, because as I read different stuff, it's like, okay, well, maybe this, but maybe that, but God is the same, over all this time. And his word is always steady, always exact. He mean what he say and he say what he mean, And so I'm like, okay, she had to have had the word. And I was just reading it when Mr. Freeman was saying that. And I was thinking about the manipulation. He was telling a story about Miss Laura and the salesperson or whatever.
Yeah, the salesperson.
How through whatever I haven't did, when just in different situations, I guess submissive wise, showing that to Satan, and then he'll come in and try to say something or tell me to do something or keep asking this question a different way over and over, just different things that if I am not staying in humility, well, reverence first for God, staying in humility, my submission to him won't be steady and consistent and line up with the word because it'll cause for me not to obey. And just thinking about how not doing it, kind of, I don't know if I'm saying this right, shows Satan the weak areas that you were talking about for, just those thoughts and things to come.
Right. See, when you look at what came to mind was Abraham in Romans 4. Let's go to Romans 4 real quickly. And this is what's in for her. This is where she was. Romans 4 and we'll look at verse 20 and 21. Romans 4, verse 20 and 21. It says, he staggered not. We'll back up. Verse 19. And being not weak in faith, he considered, didn't look at, his own body now dead. He was about 100 years old, neither yet the deadness of Sarah's womb. When that serpent, if she had known like she should have known, and Adam did know, when he started talking, he was talking about what God has said or not said, she should have killed the conversation right there, because he was trying to get her distracted from what God said to what he's saying. And that's what happened. He had her look away from what God said to what he was saying. And so we'll go further. He staggered not at the promise of God through unbelief, but was strong in faith, giving glory to God, and being fully persuaded that what he had promised, he was able also to perform. So the idea was she was not fully persuaded. If she had been, she'd have shut him down when he first said, "Have God said?" And then he said, let's go back to Genesis 3 now to see his response to her answering his question. Genesis 3, neither shall you touch it lest ye die. Serpent comes back and says, you shall not surely die. In other words, God lied. And If she was fully persuaded, she'd have said, no, God said, if we eat or touch, we're going to die. Get out of here. You ain't getting me killed. I was she going to work that thing. But she was not fully persuaded. As Ken pointed out, we know Adam taught her that you don't eat of it. Now, she might in her own mind decided, well, I ain't going to touch it either. That way I know I ain't going to eat it. But we know he told her the truth because that's the kind of human he was at this time. But in his innocence, he said what God said. But the serpent said, ye should not surely die. And then he goes on with, for God does know that in the day, God does know this. The day you eat thereof, then your eyes shall be open and ye should be as gods, knowing good and evil. As gods, knowing good and evil. And so, but she wasn't fully persuaded of what God said would happen. And so she got tricked. But this is why years ago, after I first started pastoring, and I would deal a lot with faith and believing and so forth, then those that can remember, I preached a series of messages called, what do you really believe? Because I hear people tell me what they believe, and then when something happens, I don't see them doing what they said they believe about God.
Right.
But if I really believe it, you're going to see it in my actions. That's what Paul said, show me your faith without your actions, and I'll show you my faith works. I'll show you my faith by my works. So if you watch a person, they have faith, you know about what they're doing. Their work will tell you that they have faith in God. You see, but when you see people that don't work like they should, they aren't faithful. They say they lie. I'm talking about preachers, pastors, even. Hello, somebody. Will lie in a New York minute, or even quicker than that in some areas, and then think you don't have enough sense to where you're gonna see it or God gonna show it to you. First, they don't believe that God gonna show it to you. Next, they don't believe in your gifting. I have perfect confidence in God's gifting. If somebody is lying, if I don't see it, God gonna show me one way or another. I'll see it. If somebody ain't doing right, He gonna show me, and I'll know it's Him. You see, but when you know how God works and you understand how the gifts works in the heart of His people, His ministers, then you know that there are certain things we should do, and the Bible tells us don't lie one to another. But as Dave can tell you, we've seen some people this last year do some severe lying. I mean, even though I know they wasn't the best, the lies still boggle my mind. I'm going, I didn't know it was that bad. You know where I'm coming from again? But anyhow, but this is what it is. She wasn't really fully persuaded. That's what it gets into with that, Sherelle. She wasn't fully persuaded. And if we are not fully persuaded about trusting God, like in times like this, or trusting Him about whatever, then when the pressure comes, then we go to what some people call a plan B. Well, if I really trust God, I don't have a plan B. All I got to plan A, stay with God. Ken, I see you trying to come in.
I was gonna jump in on something. I'm sorry. Was there anybody else saying something?
No, he waved his hand. No, he waved his hand. No.
Okay. One note while we were there, something I was reminded of, because when you read that over in Genesis, where it talks about her giving it to her husband with her, a lot of people, even myself back in the day, was misunderstanding that, because it sounds like he was with her during the whole thing.
Yeah, right there.
And I recently heard even Joseph Prince, oh yeah, the dude was with her, man. The dude was with her. You know, a lot of folks believe that because of the way it reads. Right. But the reasoning that Kenny Wayne shared just a few minutes ago, you shared that years ago, Walter, and that's how I knew there's a pause. And I heard one teacher since then deal with the fact that that comma that is in that sentence was really in the original another punctuation that lets you know that it was not the exact, it wasn't as if a run-on situation. But the reasoning that Ken shared is the reason that lets me know there's no way that Adam was standing by her while Satan had that conversation. And no man on this group with the now will stand and let some man slick his wife, and you standing there listening and watching.
Thank you.
Ain't no man on here now, and ain't no man I've known some men who were that messed up, but no man who, like you said, Adam was the premier. child of God. And while he bit afterwards, you know, like I said, there are theories, but the thing is, he's not going to sit there and listen to that conversation go on and not jump in and try to correct it or whatever. That's just not how men are made when they're made properly.
Oh yeah, that's exactly right. And see, the thing is that it gets back to what we've learned about small words like "ah." In this case, the small word is "with." That word "with" in this case means he was in the same garden that she was in, but that could be hundreds of feet away because he was at work tending the garden, as I put it. You see, in the military, as we know, Reagan, she was in the military. Were you in the military, Reagan? You weren't? No, that was Merdine. I'm thinking these ladies confused. Yeah, in the military, they sang this song by Jody, and Jody, they talked about how you at work and Jody got your girl and gone. You see, so the devil had enough sense. If this creature was that subtle, it ain't subtle to sashay up to a woman and her husband standing and start talking smack to the woman. That ain't subtle. Now, what's subtle is when the man go to work and he's at work and he sashays up while the man's out of earshot and he got her by herself. That's subtlety. And that's the way people are, as we know. Today, when it comes to subtlety, they watch the house. When he goes to work, then Jody comes to the house to try to get next to the wife. But he makes sure the husband is gone to work. And Adam was at work. And so as we reason it out and look at it honestly, then everything bears out to what actually took place. Now, the next thing I wanted to get to in this whole setup there is that this was not really an attack per se. What was this? It wasn't an attack. He didn't attack Eve. So what did he do? Let me see some hands.
Deception.
Say again?
Deception.
Yeah, so he seduced her. Yeah, he seduced her. You see, that's what we just read over there in 2 Corinthians 11. He seduced her. He seduced her. He misled her in his reasoning to get her to have a craving she didn't have at first through the way he reasoned with her about what God had said. And that same truth holds today. And if we don't listen carefully, it's work. It's work. Don't get me wrong. It's work. And the more we understand just how dangerous some teachers can be and how Satan can be, it makes us listen more closely when we're in the midst of a teaching of God's word going forward. That's why, as I tell you, I watch very little religious TV because it's work. And the way I work when I'm studying, doing 2 outlines now, as you know, I need some downtime. So why am I going to watch a religious television show where I got to work some more? No, I'm watching the Parkers or watching the Hugleys or watching the Western Channel or whatever. I'm relaxing, you know. But if I got a new lesson that I've never done before, it's going to take me a few days to get it done. And sometimes I'm working 7 days a week, studying and writing all day, every day, and have to get up and go ride that bike for a little bit. I understand you can't sit too long, but it's work. And so, but it's necessary work to protect myself from how subtle I know Satan is and how dangerous he is when he comes in a seductive manner. Now, on that note, looking at a person when they approaches us, I had talked to Dave about looking at seduction again. When you look at little kids, and since Aubrey is 12 now, 11 or 12, how old is she, Gerald?
11.
11. Well, depending upon people in her class, I can remember back when I was a little kid like that, little girls and little boys, one or the other would either hit the other one. And they might go to the counselor and say, so-and-so hit me. And depending upon how we're watching and knowing, we say, well, he's doing that or she's doing that because they like you see. But to get hit, it don't seem like that's somebody liking us. Matter of fact, they used to call them love taps. Is that what they call them? Help a brother, somebody. Love. Something like that, anyhow. But little girls and little boys, do they still do that, Alicia?
Yes. They call them love licks.
Tell us about some things you've seen what's going on.
Not are little bitty, so they pretty much do anything to get each other's attention, including hitting each other, you know, pulling on the little girl's hair.
I didn't say it, but you're right.
Yeah. They got all kind of stuff.
Yeah. See, if the person that's getting hit misunderstands the action or the motive, they'll think they're being attacked because that person just hit me. But see, Sister Baker, her no, you see, so she can tell, no, he's not attacking you. That's because he really likes you, you see. And depending upon how they're going to respond will dictate what they do next. But you have to give clarity about what's going on because the action is misunderstood, you see. And Satan does the same thing. See, and as David said earlier, when it comes to some women who want to get a man's attention that's not her husband and to whom she's not married and ain't got no intention on marrying. Let's put it this way, she up to something. I said like that, she up to something. And so which means that when she's doing what she's doing, and I saw a lady a few weeks ago, she had on a orange blouse that almost was shining. I mean, you're coming down the street and it's like a neon sign. Terrell, it was on a Friday, by the way. And so I thought she's trying to get somebody's attention. And so I just shook my head and just went on up the street. But she was dressed to get their attention because you couldn't help but see her. And she was going to ask her, I was going home. You see? So, but it's amazing how the enemy will use certain tactics to get attention, as she said, get attention, and then seduce somebody, you see. And it's not an attack per se, it's a seduction, but still it's a war tactic. I'll say it like that. It's a tactic of war, but it's not an attack. It's seduction. Matter of fact, I was watching Hogan's Heroes the other night, and I watch them sometimes too on the what you call the marathon, and they wanted to get some information from one of the prisoners, and they were listening. The prisoners were on the coffee pot, and so the guy, it was the American guy that's kind of tall, that thin, that imitates the Fuhrer at times. Him, anyhow, and so they had him quizzing him, but he was responding in the speaker as if he's been tortured. And when they got him back, what was going on was they had been feeding him all kind of cakes and pies and so forth. He was talking about how much pressure there was on him. So anyway, food can be a tactic of war, but not an attack. It's a tactic of war to seduce some person to divulge information. And then sometimes they use females for this purpose, you know. But in this case, Satan, his approach is seduction. That's what the whole point is about, seduction. And if we don't recognize that the approach that he has toward us is seduction, we'll misname and misunderstand what's going on. And so, but depending upon how we're being approached and what's taking place, if we have God's wisdom, we can put a name on it, as Felicia did, you know, with the little short people. Now, how old are these children, by the way?
They're 4 turning 5.
4 turning 5 and liking somebody?
Oh yeah.
My mama told me, boy, you better like your books. Anybody's got more comments?
Well, I thought about the seduction thing. That's what ended up happening with the children of Israel after Balaam was not successful in cursing them like the king who had got sent for him was trying to get him to. The next thing was there was a seduction thing that happened. I don't remember the exact details how it happened, but from the young ladies from one of the other nations ended up seducing some of the men from Israel, and that's how they were able to make some headway against the nation of Israel, to where it ended up being a pretty big judgment that had to happen because of that.
You're exactly right. Matter of fact, that was one of the priest's sons who went into the plague that God ordained, appointed upon the congregation because they were committing fornication with the women in their tents, and they were actually, if I remember something correctly, showing some reverence to their gods, and God don't play that. And so, but this priest, I forget his name, he went in the tent and killed the woman and the man and stayed the plague God had appointed. And for that reason, he was remembered by God, and they were blessed. I forget. It came up in a lesson we had on one of the outlines I did a few weeks ago. I forget. I get them. They're running together on me. But Dave's exactly right. But it stayed the plague. But they used the women to do that, to get them to first be attracted to them, and then get them to start showing some reverence to their gods. And when I was talking about that, God reminded me of a young man named Solomon. That's exactly what happened. God told him, don't marry these women from these other nations because they'll turn your heart. And the man married a bunch of them, as we know, from other nations. And when he was old, and my research chronology of the Bible says he's about 42 years old. That ain't very old, really. But about 42 years of old, they turned Solomon's heart. And God was highly upset. And little Dave shared in a lesson in Sunday school a few weeks ago, where after Solomon passed on, how the kingdom wound up being divided, as God had prophesied about, because of Solomon's wrong, and how all that got started with the women he married that were not of Israel, that when he got older, through the pressure, they finally got his heart turned. You know, it's enough for one woman, you know, and that man had a bunch of them. That's almost like suicide to a certain degree. But you know, the Bible says that when Delilah was look out, Dave.
That ain't me. That's my wife.
when Delilah was pressuring Samson, the Bible says that she vexed his soul unto death. And that's pretty vexed. One woman. Karen, you want to say something?
No, not at all. Why you keep trying to get me on the camera?
You keep acting like you're shy. You know you're not.
Oh, okay. All right. Anyhow, anybody else?
I'm done.
All right. But that's what I wanted to look at tonight, for the most part, with different ways the enemy comes, he approaches us, I say it like that. And the whole idea is to throw a craving on us. In the book of 1 Corinthians 10, somebody help me out. He talked about either desiring evil things or I forget the wording on it, but he warned them about what happened to Israel when they got caught up in these things because of desires. Yeah, it's 1 Corinthians 10. Let me see who else can read. That Ken Faye, is she on?
I'm sorry, say it again.
Is Ken Faye with us?
I'm here.
Yeah, she's on there somewhere doing it.
Ken Faye, let's get you to start with 1 Corinthians 10 and start with verse 1, and we'll read down through.
Okay, can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Moreover, brethren, I would not that ye should be ignorant, how that all our fathers were under the cloud, and all passed through the sea, and were all baptized unto Moses in the cloud and in the sea, and did all eat the same spiritual meat, and did all drink the same spiritual drink. For they drank of the spiritual rock that followed them, and the rock was Christ, and that rock was Christ. But with many of them God was not well pleased, for they were overthrown in the wilderness. Now these things were our examples, to the intent we should not lust after evil things, as they also lusted. Neither be ye idolaters, as were some of them. As it is written, the people sat down to eat and drink, and rose up to play. Neither let us commit fornication, as some of them committed, and fell in one day 23,000. Neither let us tempt Christ, as some of them also tempted, and were destroyed of serpents.
That's good. That's good. The part that caught my attention was in verse 6, where it says that these things were our examples to the intent, we should not lust after evil things or desire evil things as they also desired. And see, that's what happened with Eve. She didn't have an evil desire. She didn't desire the fruit, but the enemy, through his seduction and his misleading reasoning, created a desire, and she yielded to it. Well, as David pointed out, these people here too, Satan used different tactics. It wasn't a battle per se in the sense of an army coming against them, but it was seductive tactics to get them to have a desire contrary to God's desires, or desire something that God didn't want them to have. Same thing with Eve. And then through them yielding to that desire, to get them in a position where now they're in danger, and depending upon what the desire was and God's decree under that covenant, they died. And so it's a warning to us. But the idea, once again, is to be aware of how he works, and how the enemy is able to present certain things to get our attention, and it's designed to distract us from what God has said look at. And then once he got our attention, then boom, he takes it from there. But the idea is that, as a lot of the women do, when some guys start talking smack, they hold their hand up, walk off. Because I'm not listening to you, I ain't gonna give you the time of day, so you might as well chill. And depending upon what it is, they'll walk off and get in their car and go off because they're not interested. They ignore them. And that's what we got to do, the enemy. But we got to know that he's going to package it differently in a way where it seems like it's God. And that's where he's most dangerous, where it seems like it's God. But if we'll check it before we accept the desire, or before we allow it to get our full attention, then we can kick it to the curb and go on. And it don't take, and the sharper we get, the quicker that can be done, by the way, as you know. Now, when I didn't know as much as I know now, it took me a while to learn something. Sometimes it took a few days or two, to learn something, but God always taught me. And as you know, the more we learn, the sharper we are and the quicker we see it. And if we don't see it from reasoning it out or sensing it, depending upon our ministry, then there again, as the ministry of the prophet or the prophetess, God will show it to us in a dream or vision to get our attention, to not be deceived by how the enemy is approaching us, because he's very slick. Now, this morning, as I was waking up, I had another thought come to mind, going back to what Alicia said about the little children, 4 and 5 years old. That's amazing. Well, they just, anyhow, they call them fast back in my day, the fast girls. I don't know what they call them, managed boys, I guess. Is that what they say?
No.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Hot pants.
They still say that? Wow.
But anyhow, on that note, I thought about this custom where we men that still have, some sense of chivalry, I guess that's the word, when we are escorting our wives or girlfriend, the potential wife, they're on our left arm, Now, if I'm walking down the street, then I'll put me between the street and the wife, in which case, depending upon which direction I'm going, she may be my right arm, but I'm between her and the street. But she's either holding my right arm or left arm. But there's no danger for the street's concerned, I put her on the left arm. And it come to me, why do we do that? The origin of it. So I typed in my computer, asked that question, and I got a whole bunch. I got thousands of answers we made. It's on the book. It's on the computer. So I found this one that really got my attention, because it goes back to, again, reading body language. The question was, what does it mean when a girl grabs your arm? Quote unquote, grabs your arm. Then the answer is, when a woman touches your arm during conversation, it could mean that she is sexually attracted to you and is trying to hint that she wants you to make a move on her. A touchy-feely person who touches most guys on the arm, leg, shoulder, etc. during conversation. Uh-oh, what y'all smiling about?
Laughing at Candace.
Huh?
Laughing at Candace's face.
Oh, laughing at Candace's face. Anyhow, but that's the answer that came back. And so now physically, this is what takes place, and that's true to a lot of degree. I was a little slow to average male. I was naive. My wife can tell you how naive I was. I asked a question after we got married that the average wife would have said, "You don't know that," you know. But she knew her husband was learning, even though he should know maybe. She didn't. Well, she didn't answer my question. Matter of fact, like she didn't put me down. Like, how you been, man? Don't know that answer, But I didn't know, so I'm asking her because she would know, and she answered my questions. But anyhow, I was in 6th grade, 5th grade, somewhere around there, and this girl slipped me a note and said, "Don't you know I like you?" I was slow to see it, evidently. I didn't see it, and still had to find out who it was because she didn't put her name on it, But she finally made herself known to where I knew who it was, But since I was slow to find out, I catch the hint because she sat a few chairs behind me. I sat toward the front most of the time. Not because I answer all the questions. I just like sitting toward the front, you see. And so she slipped a note up to me to ask me the question, "Don't you know that I like you?" But anyhow. And so there are spirits out there other than humans. I'm talking about Satan now, as David mentioned, shaman. And in regard to Minna's situation, this spirit knew from watching her how to get her attention and eventually ease certain things in her mind that she didn't even know was there, desires wise. You heard the testimony she gave, but the point is, since time is getting away from me now, almost there, is that these spirits, they want us to be their lover. Go back to James real quick, like, and then we'll end up with this and have comments from Ken Wayne and Dave for final comments. And Ken Wayne, we'll let you dismiss us in talking to our Father. James 4, beg your pardon. James 4, where he says in verse 4, "Ye adulterer," we'll back up, Walt. Verse 2, "You lust and have not, you kill and desire to have and cannot obtain. You fight in war, yet you have not because you ask not. You ask and receive not because you ask amiss, that you may consume it upon your lust or desires. You adulterers," in other words, you mess around with other spirits other than God, which is why I'm craving all these things. Like if I can't go shopping without buying what I need and only that, then I'm in trouble. It's because some spirits involved other than God. I mean, that's just nutshell. "You adulterers and adulteresses, know ye not that the friendship of the world is enmity with God? For whosoever therefore should be a friend of the world is the enemy of God." That word friend means a dear. That's the first word, dear, D-E-A-R. And when I researched that word dear and looked at some definitions, one of the definitions is sweetheart, lover. And so Satan wants us, going back to seduction again, that's when he's most dangerous. He wants us to be seduced by a spirit who's bringing something that will cause us to become fond of what that spirit is bringing. And thereby, if he can get it past our mind in regard to this thing or this desire is not of God, then that spirit has a place in my mind that I'm giving him it should not have, whether it's a desire for something pleasant to the eyes, whether it's something desired for food, or whether it's desire for wisdom. All the three temptations: the lust of the eyes, lust of the flesh, and pride of life. Those are three temptations a man is approached with. So seduction comes in those three areas. And if we're not on our game spiritual with God's word, he'll deceive us. And like this girl that's grabbing the guy's arm, that's why she's grabbing his arm. That spirit grabs your arm, not as an attack, but grabs our arm because she wants to get latched onto us in order to have influence in our lives. And so it likes us. It likes us. So even though God may show it to us in a vision and we sense pain in the dream, that's because he's letting us see that this approach It's from the enemy, and the idea is to steal, kill, and destroy. And so we sense the war our soul is in. Going back to what Peter said in 1 Peter 2. He said, abstain from fleshly lusts that war against the soul. Those desires war against the soul. So even though it's a seduction, it's not an attack per se, but still a battle going on. And so we fight those fleshly desires pertaining to the old nature, pertaining to the flesh, the carnal, the part that's not of God. I'll say it that way, something not of God. If we yield to that, then our soul's in a battle, and we don't see it until God shows it to us. We may sense it. I put it this way: when I was in a battle of that type, I didn't sense it. I didn't know I was in that battle until God showed it to me. And that's the benefit of being in the prophetic, where God can show us some things in order to help others, where we can look back and relate to what was going on and then make some things clear. But that's when he's most dangerous. It's when he wants us to be a friend to him. He wants us to be friendly with it. He wants, or if you start talking about male, female, it's the vision that God gave Linda. His name was Shaman. Well, in my case, it may be a female spirit, seen as a female. But the bottom line is that spirit's not a God, and she's looking for a sweetheart. I'm gonna stop there. Dave, you and Ken can wrap it up, and Ken, you can dismiss us with talking about Father.
I have nothing. Go ahead, Kenny Wayne. It's on you.
Yeah, I don't have nothing. We'll just close with prayer. It was great. I really enjoyed it, and it really was good. Father, we do thank you and love you and give you the praise for what you're doing, Father. We know that the making plain, the opening up of your word is what gives it light. And that's what we're seeking, Father, more light from you. The light of your word is what gives us strength to be able to continue on